The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv, and the big news, I guess, the leading news.
It depends on which way you want to look at
it. Well, let's put it this way. It's part of the landscape. It was a major piece.
Yep.
The continuing saga now fundamentally is basically over.
Oh, yes, it is.
And Jasiel Correia's appeal has been denied. Mm-hmm. And here's why judges rejected it. That's the Herald News. But there's another article here, which I think there's a couple of typos in this article.
That's from WPRI.
Yeah, because I guess somebody, I don't know if they audio tape did this.
Probably.
Because it said the government failed to present inadequate evidence. I think they mean adequate evidence. Because if they were to present inadequate evidence, he wouldn't have got convicted. And then it talked about chilling, and then they repeated chilling. But they got into some pretty specific details, but fundamentally the judge basically said that, this is a quote from the article from WPRI, quote, "The record reveals that the defendant was fairly tried and lawfully convicted by an impartial jury in a trial presided over by an able judge and unblemished by any reversible error," unquote.
That was Judge Salea.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess he's going to serve at least until
April or May 2027.
Yep, 5 years.
Now here's the thing. The key issue on this appeal was the video clip. The debate between Sutter and Jasiel.
Yeah. And
they planned that thing out, so that was one of the big issues they had, saying that it prejudiced the jury. And they quoted here against Salea, "To be sure, statements made in the heat of a political campaign cannot and should not always be taken literally. That does not mean, though, that the campaigner is entitled to a free pass."
Oh, good. I'm glad somebody realizes that. Politicians don't, but the judge.
Right.
The judge. And the other one, it talked about that video clip. The court ultimately decided that had no effect on the jury's. This is another quote. "The deployment of the video clip and comments associated with it appear to have been little more than a rhetorical device, thrice repeated." So, basically they said, and even though the challenge comments may have suggested that the voters of Fall River had been duped, nothing in the record suggests that invoking the plight of those voters would have clouded the jury's ability to weigh the evidence fairly. And I think, they took a shot. You can't blame. They're getting paid.
Right.
They took a shot.
Right.
But you and I both know that it is extremely rare, especially on a federal case, for a federal appellate court to overturn a federal judge. Very rarely.
Right.
Especially in this type of case, a criminal case, maybe on some, issues where there's social justice issues and things like that, which are sometimes, theoretical and perception. But this was a straightforward criminal case.
Yeah.
But so I guess
I'm thinking of sending him a Christmas card.
Oh, God. That would be cruel. Yeah. Let's let Paul do that. Okay? Because he's the guy that does it. Anybody that has a different opinion than him, he likes to
the thing is, as tough as we were on Jasiel, and we were pretty tough on him throughout this whole process, in the beginning, he had a bright start. He had a bright career in front of him. He could have gone as high as governor or Congress.
Yeah.
And would he bounce back from that? Because people are saying he's going to bounce back. When he gets out, he's going to run again. And I'm thinking, number one, it's too early to be calling that. And number two, you may want to look at something else, because he'll be number one, he's going to have to get a job because he's got a restitution to pay.
Yep.
Which is not chump change.
No, it's big money.
It is. It's big money. So it's going to be interesting, definitely, to see.
Look, he was gifted. I've seen a lot of politicians in my time. We've been in this game a long time, but I remember when I first met him and talked to him. He has got the gift. He's got the gift. He connects with people. He's like the anti-Coogan. He's like Coogan. He just stays with his pals and hides in the back room. Jasiel used to love to interact with people.
Yes.
He had a way to connect with people. And like I said, we were tough on him about these criminal charges, but we kept it in that case.
That's right.
But nobody, he was doing, we disagreed with some of the stuff he did, like Purchase Street.
Oh, yeah.
But in reality, he was running the city fairly well.
Yes, he was.
I mean, unlike the mayor we have now, who talks a good game but does nothing, the Mino, depending on how you want to pronounce it, because we have Rhino and we have Dino, but it's, they make the E and I and E and whatever. But the mayor in name only, he actually was doing a fairly good job. I saw, and one thing about him, he is the antithesis of this mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Because he never hesitated in making a decision.
That's right. And he was very polished. Yeah. Very, very polished.
But the decision was, that's it.
That's it.
You didn't see him vacillate, go run in his office and hide for 2 weeks. I can tell you one thing, with a shadow of doubt, in my opinion, because you can say, no, he wouldn't have done that. But in my opinion, things like things like Malone, things like the issues in the police department, he would have grabbed those things right by the horns.
Yeah.
And dealt with them.
I believe
because that was his style.
Well, and look at what he did when he was in, and this is a big contention amongst people in the city. They believe that because Jasiel took on the powers that be, the good old boy network, the Teamsters, that they set him up as a martyr, for the lack of a better expression, to go take him down. They were going to take him down one way or the other. I mean, he took on the Teamsters. He privatized trash. Whether you like that or not, it's done. He took on issues in the budget, and he didn't want to hear it. He took on people like Ken Fiola and Carol Fiola and Bobby Karam, and I mean, he took on all these people.
Yeah.
And he took them on head on, and he didn't care, because that's what he was going to do. He was going to release the city from these problems. And I think he did a damn good job doing that. But again, this is what cost him. But is that what cost him? People are saying every politician has done this. If you look at this, every politician has the wheels greased, whether it's campaign donations or you sponsor a dinner or something. Every grease wheel
But
gets
everybody
greased.
doesn't extort money from
Exactly.
people. But that's the problem. And therein lies the problem. Like you said, look, I will say that every politician brings in their own people, because that's the nature of the game, the people who supported him. And people were upset because you had all these and who knows if that team and all his associates would have evolved. Because remember, that's what a lot of people don't realize. Because Paul's the master of labels, and that's why I don't like labels, because today's young guns will be tomorrow's good old boys if they stay in long enough. But that's what Jasiel did. He got rid of the Kenny Fiolas. He got rid of the old good old boy network. They were on the outside looking in.
Right.
And believe me, they fought tooth and nail to get back, and they have.
And they
in
have.
spades with Coogan.
Exactly.
Because he is involved in that good old boy network.
And
that's the reality. But that's the thing. It's like they'll say, well, they're all back. Yeah, they're all back. But who did more damage to the city? I mean, he did create some criminal acts, but in my opinion, he was a lot better for the city than what's going on now.
No question about it, because remember, Coogan took this job, and he took it when the city was in financial trouble.
Yep.
Okay? Whether that trouble came from Jasiel or whether it came from years of problems, which I personally believe it came from years of problems, he came in with the city in financial difficulty. And if it wasn't for that federal money, if it wasn't for that federal money, we would still have financial difficulty. Because if you remember correctly, in a city council meeting, Mary Sahadi said that the administration was looking at bringing back the purple bags or the trash fee.
Or both.
Or both.
Or both.
That's right. And that was said in the city council meeting.
Cutting fire and police.
That's right. And cutting fire and police.
Looking for a 2.5 override.
Right.
All those things happened. So what did our mayor do with that money? Instead of trying to fix all these things, because somebody gave you a nice interest-free grant. No, he blew it on all kinds of pet projects for himself. And what happens when that opera money created jobs with them, created greater debt that we are going to be saddled with when that opera money disappears.
It's gone, yeah.
But I mean, look, you're right, because see, that's the problem. We do this, and we're involved in it, and we know history, and we know if you don't learn from history. This all started with Flanagan. Remember the $8 million deficit?
Yep.
We got the $8 million deficit.
22 windows.
And the 22 windows. And we got rid of them.
Yep.
And we did the recall.
Yep.
You know? And we got rid of Flanagan. And then we had Sam Sutter. But Sam Sutter got in and only had a year. And then he inherited that stuff. And what did he try to do? He tried to figure out how he could get some funds to keep a Band-Aid on his city. And the people got all upset with him. But in reality, he only had a couple of months in office, and he already had to make a major decision. He didn't have like 2 years and look for grants. He had to do something. He did it. A lot of people didn't like it. He suffered the consequences. And then Jasiel slides in. So what happens? Jasiel beats him.
Yep.
Jasiel gets in. He brings in a whole new group of people, and he gets rid of the good old boy network. But the problem is when you get a good old boy network replaced by a new old boy network, if they do the same thing as the good old boys, but Jasiel didn't. To his credit, he took on a lot of the powers to be. Like he said, look, what he did. But that's a piece. But you have to be able to compartmentalize that stuff. And look what he did as mayor. I didn't agree with Purchase Street. He did it for his friends, and we hammered him for that. But all in all, not my words, but Sean Kadim's words, he was a hell of a lot better mayor than this guy.
Right.
And this guy's getting worse by the day.
Right.
But the reality is that, look, now he's doing his time. And like you said, they're kind of jumping the gun. Because in 5 years, nobody knows how he's going to be after 5 years of being, and he has $200,000 in at least $200,000, maybe more, to pay in restitution.
Yep.
So, but I can tell you one thing. I've never seen, even people who were in politics for 30 years, I've never seen a guy more suited for politics. That guy had the ability. He had the personality. He could make anybody feel that, hey, you know, I'm doing this for you. I'm with you.
He could charm a dog off a meat wagon.
He could sell ice to Eskimos.
Eskimos, yes.
Yeah. And he had a talent, and like you said, I said that the first time I met him. I said, this kid, if he does right with Fall River, he could end up in Congress.
Yes.
He could end up in the Senate.
Yeah.
He could end up, governor, because he had that much. He just had that factor with him. It's like John Kennedy. Even if Kennedy screwed up, they still loved him.
Right.
He just had that charisma.
Yep.
He had that it factor. He connected with people. And that's the thing. When people like you, they give you a lot more latitude. If they dislike you and you make one tiny little mistake, like you're off by 1/10 of a percent when you talk about something, you got Paul calling you on the phone.
Yep.
But if they like you, they go, what the hell's that? That's only a minor, it's no big deal. But he had it. It's too bad. He was a young guy. I think he got overwhelmed with his power and the amount of money he was handling, and he screwed up. He
gave some meaning to the old phrase, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And you know something? His life is long from over.
Yeah.
I truly, like I say, we beat up people, and we beat him up mercilessly too.
Yep.
But unless people make it personal, I don't make it personal. Jasiel never made it personal.
No, he didn't.
And the reality is that I hope that, He does his time, comes out, and puts his life on track and goes forward. He's got potential. He has a lot of ability to do things, and I hope when he comes out of jail that him and his family have he turns everything around and has a long and productive life, because he's not going to be an old man when he gets out of jail.
He'll be 36, 37.
Yeah, he's got his entire life ahead of him, and I wish him, I wish him the best, when he gets out. I hope he's learned something, and I believe he has. 5 or 6 years in prison has a tendency to teach you a lesson. Either that or make you a bigger criminal. I don't know. Let's hope that we see a Jasiel that comes out that puts his life back on track and has a long and productive life.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
With that, we'll leave it. But while we're talking about politicians, Maura Healy's transition policy, and I love this. I loved it when I saw this. Somebody texted. I got it on the phone. I was writing.
Yeah.
You brought it in print. But this is it, people. You wonder why nothing ever gets done. This is it. Here is the microcosm of why Detroit became Detroit.
And Fall River's going to become
and
Detroit.
San Francisco's become a pit.
Yep.
Where there are people defecating and urinating in the streets while Nancy Pelosi eats a $15 a pint ice cream and pretends that she cares. Martha's Vineyard, who cared for illegals until they got there. These people, all they do, they're rich, they're privileged, and they really don't care about the average people. They can say what they want, but here's Maura Healy's team. She looks at her team. She's going to set up a team. So, but who does she pick? Who does she pick? These transition policy teams or remember when Eddie Lambert used to send everything for a study?
Yep.
Or create a committee. Mm-hmm. This is what politicians do to pretend that they're actually paying attention to what you're going to do, and then they do nothing. Because you name me any kind of team or something that ended up with anything productive. They tried everything in Detroit. They're selling houses for $1.
And that didn't work.
And it didn't work because they really don't want those people. They want to ignore them. They don't like them. So you look at her team, and like I said, I saw her before the election say that affordable housing, not for the poor people, but for the average person in Massachusetts, is now unaffordable. So we have to work on affordable housing, which was great sentiment. But this is the way politicians work. They get in office now, and now they're going to create these policy teams. So they got the superintendent of New Bedford Public Schools tapped to be a member of Thriving Youth and Young Adults. Okay, he's a superintendent of schools if you're talking about education, but I don't know what, to be perfectly truthful, I will say it, I don't know what the educational attainment level of New Bedford is. I know it's probably higher than Fall River. Mm-hmm. So they did the best they could in that one. But then, Fall River developer will serve on the committee overseeing, quote, affordable, abundant housing. Wow, is that a classic? Another rich guy who has gone on record saying that he has no desire to have any kind of affordable housing.
That's right.
And a mayor who thinks affordable housing is putting 8 units in spite of the fact that at the last city council meeting, they said that 63% of this city is poor.
Right.
You think we need like 8 units? No, 50 units of, we need 50 units of affordable housing and 8 units of market rate housing.
Right. Now, you forgot to name the developer. You did. You forgot to name him. You know who it is.
What, Fall River developer Ken Fiola?
I never knew he was a developer.
Yeah, well, that's what I read it.
Yeah.
I said it was but he's not a developer.
No, he's not.
No, he works with developers.
Exactly.
But they don't care.
Right.
He's rich and he's got.
And he's going to do affordable housing.
And his wife is a state rep.
That's
so
right.
She knows Maura Healy. They supported Maura Healy. And these are the people they put on committees, and these people really don't care. It's like Martha's Vineyard with all the signs all over. We welcome illegals. We welcome. There's no such thing. We love them. Come. We welcome you. And then you get 50 of them getting off the bus, and they go into total hysteric mood. They're hysterical. Get the National Guard, get them out of here. You can't put them in the hotels. We got 90,000 empty rooms because the season's over, but stick them on the floor of a church hall. Let them sleep on the floor of a church. Get them out tomorrow morning. You know, this is the problem. You see this in San Francisco. What are they doing now for the homeless? Nothing. And this morning, ironically, it's like karma. What did I see? Austin, Texas. Now, you remember when I went to Austin?
Yep.
And I came back with pictures of derelicts
yes.
all over the streets, drug addicts all over, and the police don't even patrol in downtown, the capital of Texas, don't even patrol. They just let it go.
Yep.
People outside restaurants looking at you eating and stuff like that. It was horrendous. And then they say, well, you know, the red state's crime rate's just as bad as... No, it's not, because the blue enclaves within those states are what creates their crime stat.
Right.
Because Austin is a deep, dark navy blue city. Democratic mayor, Democratic city council, people laying. I still got, I think, one picture left on my phone of somebody laying in the middle of the street. You have to actually walk over these people. They're all passed out in the middle of the street.
I remember seeing pictures of them underneath stairs and corners.
Yeah. So you know what the government's answer to this is? Not close the border, prosecute fentanyl traffickers to the full extent of the law, give them life, you know, do like some countries do. The Philippines, if you're a drug trafficker, you get the death penalty. The same thing in Indonesia or Turkey. Well, in Turkey they stick you in jail for a while, which is worse than death. You hope you die. So, but you know what their answer now in Austin is? They're giving Narcan to all the bars.
Isn't that sad?
So their answer is not stopping this. 100,000 Americans dying every year. But the Democratic response is, you know, Narcan them so they can get up and overdose an hour later or the next day. You know, get the taxpayers to pay for more Narcan rather than stop the problem.
Which is the same thing we're doing in Massachusetts.
That's right.
Because there's agencies here in Fall River, and I'm not going to name them, that hand out Narcan to people who come up to them and they say they want Narcan. Some of them give training on how to use it, how to administer it, but still, that's money going out the window. And while we're talking about things like Narcan and drugs...
And how much does Narcan cost? You'd know that, a ballpark at least.
It's gone up a great deal over the past couple of months even because of the increase in use. But last time I heard it was like $175, $180 a dose. But that was a year ago or more. So look who else is on this transition team.
I was just flipping it over.
Yep. Rayford Kruger.
Oh, CEO.
Yep, CEO of South Coast Health.
Yeah.
Will serve on the Health and Safety Committee that will oversee policies around things like mental health resources and substance use recovery services.
Now, there you go. There's another one. A CEO of a hospital. And granted, he may have...
He's a surgeon.
Maybe have the medical credentials, but... You know, instead of this is where there's the great disconnect. And this is why it proves they don't really want to do anything. You're going to have a bunch of rich people who want just the opposite. They don't want to fix anything because the more sick people they get, the more money they make.
Right.
The more developers Kenny gets in, he's not looking at affordable housing. And by the way, I got to go back to that, and just because you know me, I like words, and I'm very sensitive to words. I find it ironic what she called it. She didn't just say to work on affordable housing, the committee overseeing affordable, what's that second word?
Abundant.
Abundant.
Yes.
Do we all know what abundant means?
Yeah.
It means plentiful. It means a lot. It means it should be more of that.
That's
a
right.
lot more. And they put a guy who's gone on record already as saying, I got no interest in that.
That's right.
I got no interest. And Rayford, a CEO, why didn't they get somebody who's involved every day dealing with these kinds of crises, health and safety? You know, people on the line, people who see the everyday
Doesn't
tragedy.
work that way.
No, you're right. It doesn't work that way because those people know how to fix it. And they'd say, well, there's nothing you can do except give them Narcan. The way to stop this is to stop the drug trafficking.
That's right.
To make people healthier, to do this. And then we've got Jeffrey Walker. They're all executives.
Yep.
CEOs, executives. They're all, you know, they're looking down from their lofty perch like Nancy with their $15 a pint ice cream and her $5,000 ice cream freezer, watching people crap all over to destroy the most beautiful city in the United States, turned it into a
sewer.
cesspool.
Yeah.
It's a cesspool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised they don't have the septic tanks just pumping the stuff out every day. But another one, executive direction of Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development to help make public transportation, public transportation. Isn't that amazing? So what do we got on public transportation?
Safe, reliable, and affordable, and able to connect the entire state.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we know what you know what that means. We all know what that means because there was just an article. It's just an article.
Now, here's what SERPED does for our viewers that don't know what SERPED is, or Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, is a regional planning agency that works with cities and towns on things like community master plans, regional transportation projects and planning, habitat restoration, and zoning bylaws. Obviously, they have failed at Fall River with the zoning bylaws.
Well, they can't do anything.
You can't do a whole heck of a lot
about the
in Fall
zoning
River.
now because they passed 3A.
Yeah, I know.
So I mean, that whole thing is a crock.
Exactly. Exactly.
But there was just an article about. There was just an article. I'm trying to pull it up now. Let's see. No, I'm at the wrong one again. Jesus, this thing is aggravating me.
Wow.
There was an article about the MBTA.
Yep.
Which talks about.
The 5-year plan?
They have 78% readership.
Ridership. Yep.
Yeah, readership. I'm reading it. Okay. 78% ridership, and they think it's going to be 5 years.
Right.
Until they get up to get close to 100% again.
Right.
So you know what that means? That means that they're only getting 78% of their previous revenue, which means now they're going to start cutting services.
Exactly.
The article goes on. We'll get it for the next show. I'm sorry, I got so many articles I can't dig in. We had so much to talk about today. But the reality is, again, those people, those Pollyannish, pie in the sky is that said the train's bringing, you know what the train's bringing? More taxes, more money, and probably very little service because the T is in deep trouble and will continue to be. And remember, in 2007 or 2008, they commissioned a study of the MBTA for Deval Patrick, and it said it would take billions. And what did they do since 2007 to fix it? Nothing. They only did worse. It only got worse.
And you know what's interesting is some people have said that the T is going to bring more drugs and crime to Fall River because it's an easy transport system. I personally believe that it will, because people will use the train to transport the drugs, but not to Fall River. I believe from Fall River and from New Bedford, because we're port cities. They come in, and then they go out from here. But the crime follows it.
Yep.
And the people who justify the T turn around and say, that won't happen, that won't happen. Okay, it won't happen. I believe you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank...
checks in the mail.
Yeah, the checks in the mail, that's right. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday.